Good afternoon, Brother Staples.
Good afternoon, sir.
How are you doing, sir?
Pretty good for an old
Oh,
guy.
Good. I'm here to just ask you a few questions
Very good,
pertaining to the 100th Annual General Assembly that we are going to be having on April the 2014. How do you feel about this assembly coming up? We are planning actually to celebrate the 100th Annual General Assembly in this year. How do you feel about it so far?
Well, I think it's great for the Church of God to be having the centenary at this time. I look forward to be a part of it.
Good, and so do I. Question one, how long have you been a member of the Church of God in Jamaica?
February of this year, 66 years.
66 years.
66 years.
That's
yes.
quite a long time, Brother Staples. Okay. How did you become a Christian?
Well, I got converted on February 25, 1948 at the church in Christiana.
Oh my, that's long before I came on earth.
Where were you?
So, where was your local church? You said that it was in Christiana.
Christiana, yes.
Right. Is it the same as today? Are you still a member of the Christiana Church of God today?
Yes, except they have built a new church.
Okay, they have built a new church. And I suppose a bigger one too.
A bigger one, yes.
Good. Which leader baptized you as a member of the Church of God?
Only known as Brother Walter Mullings.
Yes.
He was the leader of the church then.
Okay.
Yeah, and he baptized me.
Okay, just to pull your memory a bit, Brother Staples, what were your impressions of the church in which you were baptized?
Well, as a young person then, it was just great.
Yes.
Just simply great as a young person then in the church.
Yes.
Yeah, it was really a great experience.
Okay. The Church of God has a rich heritage. And many persons have found memories of the Church of God, different areas, of the Church of God. May I ask, what area, what are your fondest memories, of the Church of God in Jamaica?
Well, my memory goes back particularly to many of the people that I have met.
Yes.
I knew Brother and Sister Olsen very well.
Yes.
And a great number of the older ministers. I'd grew up to know them, and I have fond memories of them.
Yes.
Sam Hines, W.T. Miller, Frank Urquhart, just to name a few.
Oh, the giants of the early movement of the Church of God.
Then, yes.
And in an earlier conversation, you were saying how impressed you were with the hymns of the Church of God.
Oh, the great hymns.
Yes.
Great hymns. The intensity of the hymns by D.S. Warner.
Yes.
And I think that is something that the Church of God is missing out on today.
Yes.
We don't sing them anymore.
Yes. And I think part of the centennial celebration is to help to revive, that part of our culture.
Yeah.
So we hope that will, do very well in doing that. What have you regularly attended our annual General Assembly?
Say that again.
Have you
attended?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
On a regular basis?
Yes. I was away from the island for a little while, but for all the years I've been here,
yes,
I have attended the General Assembly.
Okay. What would you say would be your fondest memories of General Assemblies over all these years?
Some of the things that I remember are some of the leaders who led the assembly. There was E. Dillian Jones. I think every time he led the assembly,
yes,
there was one song he would sing, The River of Peace.
Yes.
I keep remembering that.
Yes.
Then I remember others, many others who have, like George Cohen,
yes,
Brother Cohen as one of the preachers.
Yes.
D.A. Hines, Sam J. Hines' father,
yes,
as one of the preachers. Those are some of the people that I can remember all the way from when assembly was at High Holborn Street.
Yes.
Yeah.
You speak of these as precious memories, Brother Staples.
Precious memories. Yes.
Good. How do you feel about the Church of God Assembly celebrating, 100 years earlier? You said that you think it was a good idea.
Yeah,
celebrating the 100th.
a centenary is,
Centenary.
is a big thing for anyone
yes.
to remember, you know,
Yes.
as your anniversary.
Exactly.
So I think the church has survived all of these years. And so to celebrate 100 years, I think we have done fairly well.
Yes.
And I'm very happy to be still alive
Okay.
at the 100th year.
Praise the Lord.
I've
And
been there for 66 years.
yes, and you will survive the 2 centennial, because recently we celebrated the 100th year of existence in Jamaica, and now the 100th annual General Assembly.
Right, yes, because I have been attending General Assembly from 1949 at Holborn Street.
Yes, 1949.
Holborn
That's
Street.
a long time ago.
Yeah.
At Holborn Street.
Yeah.
Okay, and we have seen it move from Holborn Street
To
to our present location at Holborn Hall.
Yeah.
Good. Who are some of the national and local leaders of the church who have died, but who you can remember as outstanding leaders of the Church of God in Jamaica?
I can remember very well the Strutters.
Yes.
They were the Strutters were the teachers of people like S.G. Hines
Yes.
and Rupert Lawrence, not Rupert Lawrence, yes, Rupert Lawrence, and Brother Simpson, Sister Mandel, and many others of those older, some
Heroes
of them,
of faith. Praise the
pastors
Lord.
of the church,
Yes.
yeah, who were not taught by Brother Olson.
Okay.
And then we had leaders like Claire Schultz. He was the leader of what we had called then the we had a meeting that we called the Advance Rally.
Okay.
That used to take us all over the island. And because from Jonestown we had a male quartet, we used to sing and we used to drive everywhere they had this
Yes.
this rally. So it was great for us.
Great,
yeah.
great.
Yeah, it was Reverend Claire Schultz. And then we had Ralph Little,
Yes.
who was responsible for the workshop. He brought in all those equipment that I had and now has. It was brought by Brother Ralph Little. And he had the workshop there and he taught some of the local fellows from the church like Granville Campbell and others in the woodworking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the early history involved development of the whole man, not
Yes,
only to
that's
be
right.
theologians, but also to be skilled
Skilled
persons.
workmen, yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting early movement. Did you interact, with any of the missionaries now, who served the Church of God in Jamaica, say
Yes.
up until 1970?
I interacted with people like the Strutters.
Yes.
Know them very well. They wanted me to be a pastor. They did everything for me to go into ministry. But my pastor, Reverend L.G. Carothers at Jonestown,
Yes.
when consulted, he said to me, look, it's a bad thing to be found in a place where you're not to be and you can't get out. And I never really got to the point where I thought I should be.
Yes.
But Dr. Oldham came here and we sang for him and they were trying to tell me, said, there is Dr. Oldham, and they all wanted me
Yes.
to have been a minister. But I never thought I was for
Called
that.
for that ministry.
Called for the ministry. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yes, and so I'm sure though that you served in many different areas of the church. And
I have served in
Yes.
every area of the church except baptism and marriage.
Yes.
Every other area I've assisted.
yes,
Funerals and all the other areas of service in the church I've been a part.
okay, yes, and that is understand. Those are for ordained ministers to perform, like the marriages, the weddings, and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay. How would you summarize your contribution to the development of the Church of God in Jamaica? The
My
missionaries?
contribution?
No, the missionaries.
The missionaries,
Yes.
well, we have to say that theirs were fundamental.
Yes.
Because they taught the ministers. All the early ministers were taught by the foreign ministers,
Yes.
including the great Dr. James Earl Massey.
Massey.
He was the last of the group
Yes.
who came down and taught people like Wilma Jackson.
Yes.
And that group. They were taught by Dr. James Earl Massey.
Massey.
And he was a great friend. I knew him as a friend.
Yes.
You know, where he lived, I used to go to his house. We used to write. And since I've gone to America, we have met together and so
Yes.
on. So I knew James Massey as a friend, and he was one of the great guys
Yes.
that came to Jamaica
Okay.
from abroad.
So we have seen some giants, so
Oh,
to speak,
yes.
of the
Oh,
Church
yes.
of God movement, and their
Yes.
legacy, you would say, is significant.
Oh yes,
for
very
the development
significant
of the
for
church.
the development of the church in Jamaica.
Yes. Question 13. What have been your specific contribution to the Church of God Reformation movement? I know that you have, worked in many different areas, but maybe you want to mention like projects that you have helped with. I know that you contributed significantly to the Harborview Church and that kind of thing.
One of the
Yes.
contribution we make was the Jonestown Male Quartet
Yes.
was recognized all across the island, and it began when Reverend L.G. Corotas was pastor. He was part of a quartet with himself, Sam Hines, Reverend Struthers, and I forgot who the other person was. And so when he left Bible school in the early 50s, he brought it and we had it in Jonestown. And so we went all over the island. Every assembly
Yes.
we would sing. And all important things we would. And then Sam Hine was a national preacher. So we would go with him to several other congregations.
Yes.
So the quartet was well known, which was called the Jonestown Male Quartet.
Yes.
And we sang and we went all over the place.
You spoke earlier of the advanced rally.
Yeah.
And now of the choir, that went all around. You seem to be a moving church back then.
Yes. Reverend Kirschulz had that as a evangelistic. It was an evangelistic outreach of the
okay.
Church of God throughout the island, and so they would go from not sitting out. They would go from parish to parish,
Yes.
and to have these meetings, and been to Savlamar several times,
Yes.
and other churches with the leadership of Claire Schultz.
That sounds very interesting, and maybe something we should revive, as we go forward. You must have remembered, at least hearing about the gospel trumpet or the gospel messenger. Have you ever seen it or read it?
I have never read it, but I've seen it.
Yes.
I've seen a copy of the gospel trumpet, and I have a faint memory of Brother, not Delavante, yes, Delavante,
Yes.
with a copy of the. I think he was the person who invited the
George
Olsons
Olson,
down.
yes.
And I have seen it with a copy of the
Gospel
the
trumpet.
periodical in his hand.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Okay. So you have never read it.
I can't remember having read it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were there any other literature around that you might have known and read in
Well,
those early days?
There
Of
was
Church of
one
God?
book that I can't forget. And when I came to Kingston, the Seventh-day Adventist people were really giving the church a hand, especially us young people in Jonestown,
Yes.
pressuring. And Reverend Carothers got 2 books, which was a must read for all of us young people.
Yes.
One was the Sabbath and the Lord's Day.
Yes.
And the other one was Ideas for Earnest Youth.
Okay.
And I read Ideas for Earnest Youth, and that sent me into my profession after having read it.
Yes.
Because
yes.
it said something from that I've never forgotten. It said, opportunities avail itself every morning. Every morning you pick the papers up.
Yes.
There's an opportunity, but are you ready?
Ready. Yes.
Are
That's
you
a
ready?
very good question.
See?
Yes.
And I've never forgotten that.
Yes, yes. And from your recollection, these were publications from
From
Anderson.
the Church of God, yeah.
From the Church of God.
Yes.
Yes.
The name of the script, what is it? What, yeah.
Okay.
Who
But
wrote
they
it?
were Church of God publications.
Oh, no, church, yeah, both books were Church of God, the Sabbath and the Lord's Day.
Yes.
And Ideas for Earnest Youth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Today, Brother Staples, we sometimes hear of, doctrinal controversies in the Church of God in Jamaica. We are not certain on certain positions, doctrinally. Looking back, do you think that we have changed doctrinally on any major issue from back then? No?
I don't think so.
Yes.
The major doctrines of the Church of God, I believe, remains intact.
Meaning that.
I don't think we have changed. I believe today
Yes.
we're a little more Pentecostal
Yes.
than in the early days when we were called Holy Quietness.
So, and this could mean that we are adapting to, the situation in which our own culture.
Right, in our Jamaica culture is changing, and the
Right.
church culture is really changing.
Exactly.
A lot of our churches are on the periphery of Pentecostalism.
Pentecostalism.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And would you have anything to say about the organizational structure? Has there been any change? We have some regions now. Did we have, regions back then?
Well, I don't think. One thing I think is that from what I see now, the leadership
Yes.
is not as forceful as it was then. And I
Yes.
think if there's any area that we need upgrading is
Yes.
strong leadership
Right.
of the church.
And we have always been a congregational church, a structure
Yeah.
and organization. Do you see this as a weakness or as a strength, the congregational, approach that we have?
Well, I don't think. I think as time changes, things will change.
Yes.
The congregational approach, I remember having had a part in when we had from ministers and so on.
Yes.
Things happened, and it was the congregational approach that established the position of the pastor.
Yes.
And I don't think that was a bad thing.
Yes.
Now, if they are moving forward for the developmental of it, well, I think changes, evolution,
Exactly.
as far as the church is concerned, might be a good thing.
That is so true.
Yes.
And it is also true that it's a part of the strength of the church to adapt itself, to the situation in which,
Very
an
true.
environment in which it finds itself.
Yes.
Okay. Another important matter, Brother Staples, that I think, we should look at. From your history of the Church of God, who would you conclude as the most instrumental local
Leader.
national leader?
I would put it to two people,
Yes.
Sam Hines and W.T. Miller.
Sam Hines and W.T. Miller.
Yeah.
Okay. So you would see these as outstanding leaders.
Very
local.
outstanding.
Okay.
W.T. Miller was very outstanding.
Yes.
He had the national, after the departure of the missionaries,
Yes.
the national evangelical move of the Church of God, conducted from Kingston, was under the leadership of W.T. Miller.
W.T. Miller. Good. And what about Sam G. Hines? I've heard about him and I've seen him just once. But I understand that he was not only a Jamaican Church of God, but an international
Sam G.
member of the Church of God in
Hines
Jamaica.
was at the very top
Yes.
of preaching.
Yes.
In 1959, when we had the Cuban crisis,
Yes.
I listened to Sam G. Hines preach at Jonestown for 1 hour and 59 minutes. And you just sit like this. he could have been going on until now. He was the maximum leader as far as preaching was concerned.
1 hour and 59 minutes.
And
he kept the attention of his audience.
And he had just left Franklin Town at the 8 o'clock service, and he came to Jonestown and preached that time.
That was terrific. terrific. How do you view the Church of God today? You know, in contrast to the Church of God, maybe like say 40 years ago, compared with the Church of God today, how would you compare them?
That's difficult because times have changed so much. One thing, when you go to, in those times, when you go to a Church of God service, you were greeted as the saints.
Yes.
Today, good morning, church, which is quite a change.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And there were things there that was so, when you look back, but you have to take into consideration the times have changed. Times have changed.
Yes.
And people have evolved. Yeah.
What would you say, Brother Staples, in terms of the church and the spiritual and social development of Jamaica? How would you maybe evaluate the contribution of the Church of God in Jamaica to the development of Jamaica in terms of the schools, the institutions that it has and so forth?
Well, I would think that in the development of the country outside of the spirituality of the country, it's Arden High School.
Yes.
And Arden has risen to be such a high school in Jamaica with multiplied hundreds of children being taught there. I think Jamaica, the Church of God has contributed greatly to the development of the country from that point of view in particular.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was said that the Church of God was one of those early, institutions that emphasized the training of their ministers. Do you have any comment on that?
Well, the pastors, I know the pastors of yesteryear in the Church of God. I have listened to preaching.
Yes.
Both abroad and here in Jamaica. And I think the training of pastors in preaching, especially yesteryear, has been at the very top.
Yes.
Very top.
Very top.
Yeah.
So grand days of old, and we cherish those. These are precious memories.
Oh yes.
Good.
Oh yes.
How do you see the Church of God right now in this social context in the 21st century in Jamaica? It is really trying very hard, to really set a pace for launching in the future. How do you see the Church of God in Jamaica, say 20 or 30 years from now, in the future? Where is it going?
The thing is, you wonder, as things is going and looking now, if it might not be absorbed in the total context of the church movement in Jamaica, the religious movement, that it might become 40 years from now not to be seen as a local church, but a part of a body of churches.
Yes.
We are the church leadership per se have merged more in oneness for service to the country rather than individual groups around it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a very important concern, Brother Staples, that we have. And, we hear people, giving their opinions on it. The question really is, in your estimation, what is the major weakness, of the Church of God in Jamaica, the Reformation movement here? What would be what would you see as the greatest weakness of the Church of God in Jamaica?
I believe that leadership is key to anything, any movement or whatever. And I think the leadership of the church needs to be strengthened greatly for it to continue and to have its place. The leadership has to be, I believe personally that our leadership now is not as strong as it ought to be.
Okay. Thank you very much, Brother Staples,
Yes, sir.
for this very stimulating interview. And not only stimulating, but very informative. And I'm quite sure that our listeners will benefit greatly and the
Hopefully.
wider church community. Thank you
Hopefully.
very much.
Yes, sir.